David, we've talked a lot already about Clay Holmes and why you guys think he's a good fit to transition from reliever to starter. How much do you rely on Carlos Mendoza and his intimate knowledge of Clay Holmes when making that decision as well?
I think any time we have a manager or a coach who has personal history with a player, that's a huge benefit to us. And it's a benefit to the player as well because they have more familiarity coming into our organization. So we're fortunate that we've got Mendy. We also now have Desi Driscoll, who has familiarity with a lot of the Yankees pitchers, and both of those, both Mendy and Desi, were very helpful in providing context and helping us understand who Clay is as a person, and giving us confidence that he can make this transition.
What did they say about him that, again, helps inform that decision that he will be able to do this successfully?
The big thing is that he's going to do everything in his power to make it a success. When he puts his mind to something, he's the type of person who generally gets it done. He's going to look to uncover every possible way to gain an advantage, and that's a big deal when you're asking someone to do something a little bit different than they've done previously.
What is your appetite as an organization right now in the right deal to move any prospects that you have, including at the upper level of your system right now?
Yeah, look, we have to be open to anything, and we're certainly not in a spot where we are seeking to move our top prospects. We really like what the top of our system looks like, and a lot of those guys have the ability to impact our team as soon as this year. But we also recognize that if we're going to be in the market at the high end of the trade market, sometimes these prospects are what it costs. And so, I think we are at a point where it's very difficult to say that anyone is untouchable. We have to be open-minded to everything. At the same point, for us to trade players that we think are going to be very good major leaguers in the future, we have to really be impacting our major league team now.
Has that mentality shifted from last year? Because at least in the conversations that we had with you, there did seem to be a little bit more of a hesitation going into last year to make any moves that may deplete the farm system.
Yeah, I think where we are now with the depth of our farm system, with the strength of our system, along with the competitiveness of our major league team, it probably does come into the conversation a little bit more when we're talking about trading from all segments of our system. Again, we're going to be very cautious with that. We think we've got a lot of good players in our minor league system. Most of them, we are looking forward to having them as New York Mets for a long time. We also understand that part of this and part of roster construction and team building is making trades, and that's going to require parting with talent at times.
And I know something else that you talk about, and you just said it earlier, these young players, some of them may have the opportunity to impact the big league roster this season. We saw what a guy like Mark Vientos getting an opportunity could do for the group last year. When you're at the point you're at right now, where clearly it's a very win-now mode, how do you go about deciding, okay, this is an avenue that we need to leave open without risking having too big of a hole?
I think we have a recognition that we're always going to be in win-now mode. And so we're never going to be at a point where it's the conventional thing to do to leave roster spots a little bit uncertain. But it's also the type of thing that we have to do to allow young players to contribute at the major league level and sometimes fail at the major league level. Mark is the great example. Mark had challenges at the major league level in his first couple tries in the big leagues, and then he figured it out. And he obviously had a huge year for us last year, and it's going to be a big part of our future. So we have to remain cognizant of that. And even when it feels a little bit of uncomfortable for us, ensure we have roster space so that our younger players can play.
Luisangel Acuna had a bit of a difficult time at AAA and then came up and obviously made a huge impact down the stretch, having a good winter ball season right now. How do you view him, what that season looked like last year, and how much, again, does that success, even though it was a small sample size, maybe change the internal perception at all?
So we saw a player with tremendous poise. We saw a player who we took and from the minute he stepped foot in a major league locker room, we put him in the middle of the pennant race playing shortstop at a very high level, and that means a lot. I think it shows us a lot. It shows that he's not going to be afraid, and that's pretty exciting. He's also still a very young player who has gains to make and growth that he needs, and he's a high aptitude player, so we think he will make it. But we understand he's far from a finished product, and we're looking forward to helping him with his continued development.
Finally, David, I know all the talk about your own free agents is centered around Pete Alonso, Sean Manaea, but there were a couple of guys that in limited time last year became very popular Mets, and Jose Iglesias and Jesse Winker. Is there any interest in a reunion with one or both of them?
Sure, and I think we're keeping in touch with pretty much every potentially departing free agent. And there are certain conversations that take place earlier in the offseason before the new year, and then there are certain conversations as you're rounding out your team that maybe take place more in January and February. But we recognize the culture that we were able to have last year, and I think the two guys you mentioned were a meaningful part of building that culture.
David, appreciate the time as always. Safe travels back.
Thanks a lot, Steve.